Hey there, we are back with assigning blame, and we're going to jump right into it. One of the most prevalent things which happens in a fear-based life is assigning blame to everyone except oneself. This, of course, negates any power one may have. When everyone else is responsible for what happens to you, then you really don't have any power. Well, you will say, I didn't abandon myself when I was born. No, and you aren't responsible for that abandonment either. Although deep down inside, you may feel like you are. So I want to make that clear that as adoptees, we don't have control in that manner, right? Like I have a post up about the contract thing where we are put into a lifelong contract we can never get out of, right? We have natural parents and adoptive parents putting us into a contract that we can never get out of, literally. That's not saying that's okay, legality wise, there are people that want to choose to get out of it, right? They may want to reverse their adoption, they want to be emancipated, all those things, and they cannot because of the laws that make us adoptees less than, right? We unfortunately lose 15 of our 30 human rights because of adoption. Now, some people are okay with that. Some people are fine. Sorry, guys. You hear background noise? That's my cat. Some people are not bothered by it. Other people are, right? There is some blame to go around, right? We are often voiceless. But we're going to continue because this part I'm kind of feeling iffy about. But let's continue. Where was I? Oh, although deep down inside you may feel like you are. In talking about using our traumas as excuses for inappropriate behavior, Britton says whatever the excuse is in regards to the way it shaped your life in the past, and that was in 2001, she reminds us that these excuses, however true in their beginning, only serve to take away any sense of personal responsibility or accountability. In addition, they also, quote, give you permission to ignore your own values, beliefs, and commitments, thereby setting aside any sense of personal integrity, unquote. It is a conundrum that adoptees take responsibility for that over which they had no control, their separation from their mother, and do not take responsibility for things over which they do have control, like being fired from a job, getting low grade on a test, or getting a speeding ticket. Think about it. Really think about it. What could have you done differently in those situations? How could you have had some control, the power, over what happened? Could you have gotten to work on time, studied for the test, driven the speed limit? In many cases, and not what happened at the beginning of your life, to be sure, but in many cases, now as an adult, you have choices in your life. You don't have to blame others for what happens to you, how you are acting, feeling, thinking, or being. In fact, you should never blame others for those things because most of what is going on is your perceptions of situations and people, and those perceptions may be distorted by your original abandonment and the filter of fear. Okay, I see what she's saying. So what she's saying is that once you get to a certain point in your life, right, that even though we have like a filter on, right, we are hyper vigilant, we have this like, I don't know how to explain, like we constantly talk about how our brain is rewired because of the trauma, right, which is true. She's saying that there are situations where we do have control, but we tend to blame other people instead of taking that personal responsibility, right? And this is where the emotional intelligence comes into play. You know, not everything is, how do I explain this? there's a limit to control of what we can and can't do, right? So, like, I was talking to my mom the other day, and she was like, you gotta let, I'm in a situation, being cyber stalked, and she was like, you kind of have to let it go because you can't control the situation. I know it's still bothering you because you keep talking about it, but you don't have, like, I cannot control the other person, right? I can only control myself and my actions, and I've done everything to protect myself. So it's one of those things where it's like, you do what you have to do to move on with your life. You do what you have to do to protect yourself and be happy and successful at whatever you want to do. But you can only control your own actions, right? And this is where I feel like it gets kind of distorted with the assigning blame, right? There are going to be people that demand things of you, right? To speak out on situations, to do things for them. There's a lot, right? You have the power to choose to say yes or no, right? You have the power to control your own body. And that's where the author Nancy Newton Verrier is talking about, right? It's not blaming those negative choices and behavior on the trauma that we experienced, right? When you now have control. Now, I understand that if you're listening as a birth parent or an adoptive parent and your child is still like under, say under the age of 25, okay? And I'm going to give 25 as an example because our brains in general are not fully developed until that age. Okay, there's science behind that. Even if they are legally an adult from 18 to 25, like, let's just be real. Let's just be real that our brains are still not fully developed, right? But think of childhood, right? While the child does have control over their body, they still need help, right? And a lot of the times, we as a society fail our children in helping them regulate, right? We demand so much of children to regulate their emotions, to be able, like I said, we should be naming their emotions. We should be helping them cope. Giving these tools at a young age and understanding that they're young. But we expect more of children than we do of adults, right? We have people acting out in the streets, the Karen videos and all that, right? These are grown adults who know better, right? But they're doing exactly what we're being accused of. They're assigning blame without taking responsibility. And yet we expect our children to do better, right? So just something to think about. I will see you guys tomorrow for changing your perceptions, and we will continue on.